welcome everybody. Special podcast. You know, I don't talk to people. I don't know if this is going to be an interview or just a chat, but this is Ximy Gonzalez, and she is a Chek graduate from the Chek Institute in California, probably the most well-known holistic health guru in the world, Paul Chek. There's been many great graduates from the Chek Institute: J.P. Sears, Troy Casey, Elliot Hulse, Ximy Gonzalez, myself. We're all a little bit different. So Ximy has some great programs. She's been rehabilitating, is it mostly females, Ximy, that you've been sort of working with?
Yeah, so like throughout my career, I've worked both with females and males, but and I work with male trainers and coaches as a mentor, helping them understand the painful relationship that their clients have with food and body image. But mostly my focus is on females, especially because of everything that's happening right now against the females. So
Ximy and I have seen the world sort of through the same lens. There's a lot of disempowerment on both sides of the gender line. The males have one particular issue, or many. We have many. And as a male, I could testify to that wholeheartedly. The females have their own set of attacks. And before we start with this conversation about sort of how the females being disempowered, and Ximy's going to give us some tools to reestablish our power. But the first thing I'd like to say is that no one's born like what we're going to describe. Whether I'm going to be a little hard on the males, Ximy will describe the females in her own way, having these issues. No one is born like this. This is all about social engineering a certain group that I talk about quite a bit. They're a very old historic group, but if you want to find out how old this group is, that you can watch David Whitehead's documentary called Cult of the Medics. And this group is, all they know how to do is manipulate. That's sort of their job, and they've passed down these skills over time. They don't know how to do anything else. Just like someone's a plumber and their kid's a plumber and their kid's is a plumber. They're very good at plumbing by the third generation. Well, this has probably been going on for over 100 generations. These people know how to manipulate, and they are manipulating the male and the female into this end product that makes us easier to manipulate, but they have some old and very odd religious views about the male and the female that we're probably not going to touch on today, but they're molding all of us in the image that they desire. And it's leaving us really weak, helpless, hopeless. And when we lack internal power, it just makes their job easier. They know that, so they're organizing and social engineering our weakness. So Ximy, maybe you could start off, and you can go off on your own tangent, but what are the sort of primary ways that the female is being socially engineered to run east looking for a sunset here?
Yeah, I think that I'd like to start answering that question with one of the things that really snapped me out of it, and that really encouraged me to start questioning my own spells that, I've put myself under. I was interviewing some Kogi Indians in the mountains in Colombia. This is where I'm from, in Santa Marta, La Sierra Nevada de Santa Marta, magical place. And I was actually doing a documentary with Paul's son, and we were trying to do kind of like a Weston A. Price investigation, but more in modern times. And then it turned into this whole thing about glyphosate because they were spraying the mountain, etc. Anyway, we're getting ready to interview the Indian. And at the time I was working in entertainment, in media. So I've had, two careers going on simultaneously. One was I had mass communications, and the other one was holistic health. And at the time I was working like on TV, on camera as a fitness bombshell, whatever. Because I already had my Chek training, I was able to see a lot of the garbage, the programming, and I didn't participate. And I will be talking more about that later, which is also how I got all this understanding. So anyway, I'm talking to this Indian, and out of the blue, like something told me to ask him, what's your idea of a beautiful woman? Don't ask me why, but I just asked him that. And then he goes, well, that she's kind, that she's a good mother, that this and this and that. And then he just starts describing characteristics. And I'm like, well, maybe it's the language barrier. He's not understanding me. So then I try to keep, like rephrasing the question. And he kept giving me the same kind of answer. And then it hit me and I realized, oh no, the one who doesn't understand is you, Ximy. These people have not been exposed to TV and magazines and billboards and all this social engineering. Mm-hmm. So they don't have a concept of this. And at that moment, I went like, oh my God, like, so if this is a construct, what else about our society is a construct and a lie? And this just, triggered my curiosity. And I think that was one of the things that sent me on my investigation. And at the time, as I said, I was working on media while having my understanding of holistic health. So it gave me a very good, set of tools to be able to see through the veils. And that's, what I want to share today.
I want to tell people too, when Ximy described herself as a bombshell, she wasn't being self-flattering. She actually has a company that's called the Bombshell Formula. I just wanted to throw that in there because I'm sure a lot of people were like, oh, she's pretty confident saying that she's a bombshell, even though she's quite fetchy. But yeah, that wasn't her just kind of grandstanding. She actually has a company.
Yeah, it's called Bombshell Formula. But you know what's interesting too? It's like everybody's like, oh, you're so full of yourself. Well, if I'm not full of myself, who am I full of? Their programming? Absolutely not.
Yeah. Yeah. And in our world, the way we're being conditioned with guilt and shame, because everything we're seeing is all psychological. So I was speaking for the people that would be sort of taken back by someone having confidence in themselves, but I'm just speaking on behalf of that group because that's being socially engineered into people as well. What are sort of the top social engineering programs that are leaving the average female rearranging the furniture on the deck of the Titanic? Where are they wasting their time, wasting their resources, chasing their tail, and putting out a lot of effort only to get negative return? What do you see as some of the popular pitfalls? And I'll have to be honest with the audience, the most popular pitfalls will be the hardest to see because they'll be everywhere. And it would be the equivalent of asking a fish what water is. The fish might say, what's water? And the interviewer might say, it's all around you. It's what you swim in. And the fish says, I still don't know what you're talking about because that's all they've known. So what are the major areas that the kind of holding the female, like pinning their hot air balloon to the ground?
Yeah. And as you're saying that, I'm laughing because when I had that experience with the Indian, that's exactly what I thought. Oh my God, it's like I've been living in water, but wait a minute, there's land. Exactly. So yeah,
yes.
So okay, so I think that there's so many, it's kind of hard to like really, like say
take
which
the top
one is the
five.
biggest one. I would say one of the first ones and the most important ones is teaching women to wage war against themselves and against their bodies. I think that teaching women the ritual of self-loathing is a massive one. And that does several things. One is that it keeps women feeling like they're not enough. And then that sets the stage for anybody to come over and present them with a shiny apple and telling them, if you have this shiny apple, you will be enough. And there's so many shiny apples out there that women are falling for. And it's really sad to see, because what they've done is they've wrapped that shiny apple under the guise of empowerment, and that you will be popular, and that you will be loved, and that you will belong, and that you will be successful. And it's this whole narrative and all of these things that we were born into. And like Jason says, that it's the water, it's things that we can't see, but we think that that's it. And, you know, what am I talking about? Mutilation of the body, you know, inserting foreign objects in the body. And I know that these conversations don't make me popular, but I've had to work with so many clients that were having health issues because of, for example, breast implants. And when I would talk to cosmetic surgeons and be like, okay, well, my clients are having this and this and these problems, they would be like, no, it's not the implants, it's the most tested medical device on the market, and this and that. And this is like, yeah, it was a while ago. And these women got so gaslit, like they were so sick, and they got so gaslit, they were told it's in their heads, this can't be. And then eventually a lot of women got together and they started these breast implant illness groups. And then they came to the FDA and they had these massive hearings. So now there's an acknowledgement that women can get ill through breast implants, but they had to get together and make it happen. And this is, you know, one of the things that I want to say, there's so much disempowering information out there. And what I want to do is, as we talk, I don't want to contribute to the disempowerment and the helplessness. I want to help you understand that there are tools and that there are things that we can do to opt out from these people's chessboard.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to give, is the solutions, and guide people along when they found out they've been tricked. And this trick does go back to this group. There's a part of our mind that, like you said, craves being worthy. And being worthy sometimes is always sort of assessed through what we call the subconscious mind. And it's always looking for repetitive messaging to see where the safe path is to follow. And in media, we're always told that, you know, these things, these mutilations is what's going to get you the most attention. Now, the subconscious looks for repetitive content because the most attention registers is safe. And the whole design of the system is to make people safe.
Right.
So
the illusion of safety.
It's a safety trap, because, you know, they will, a long time ago, when we were just in the jungle, the most repetitive content did make us safer. If we're in the tribe, and if we're going to the cornfield, and the left-hand path to the cornfield goes by the wasp, the bee's nest, and the crocodile pit, and everybody takes the right, and you see people taking the right on a repetitive basis through your entire life, if you were to, you know, move toward the repetitive messaging there, it would keep you safe. And that's how this part of the brain is designed. The people who rule us know about this repetitive messaging, and they are now controlling it. So this repetitive messaging did work well in God's realm. And then the people who rule us said, look, why don't we have an artificial realm? The screens and the advertising keep the people's eyes on these screens, and will manipulate the repetitive message to hijack this safety-seeking mechanism. So the women have always also been overly sexualized. And that was an agenda that was actually spelled out and documented in this. There's a doctor by the name of Dr. Richard Day. And if you go to drrichardday.com, you can hear about this agenda. I won't give everybody the backstory, but this was in 1969, where a doctor had a private meeting for 80 of his doctor friends to warn them about what was coming in 1969, and the overly sexualization of the female was front and center in the social engineering, which again sort of can be seen in this repetitive messaging that overly sexualize the female. So it feels safe getting overly sexualized with the larger breasts, even though they're made of plastic. Does that make any sense, or do you want to pick up on that at all?
It totally makes sense, and I completely agree with you, because they do understand, how our brains work. And by the way, not to give them credit about them being overly special or anything, they've just, done their homework. But they understand like how our brain works and our primal being. And as you said, they've tried to create a new environment, like a little petri dish that they have engineered and they control. That's why they call us the culture, or like a little culture in a petri dish. And they just observe and do their little things and their manipulations. And sexualizing women is certainly a huge part of the agenda. And like you say, it's not just through the breast, but it's like if you look at the way they want to engineer women, and so they look like sex dolls with the over-exaggerated lips, the huge breasts, and now they're going for, first it was women didn't want to have a butt, and now it's like this overly voluptuous, overly sexualized body. And the interesting thing is that, when you talk to a lot of these women are frigid. On top of that, you know what I mean? So there's like all these mixed messages, over sexualization, but then at the same time, these women are not connected with their bodies naturally. They can't connect with a partner. And I think pornography has a lot to do with that as well, because I think that was another part of the agenda. But the over-sexualization and the promiscuity and the, let's be equal to men, and, and all of these parts of the agenda that really sever women from their bodies and from themselves and from their souls and from their family and from, it's an agenda of disconnection from ourselves, from nature, from source, from other people, from our own sovereignty, so that they can, if you don't have any inner guidance, if you don't have a moral compass, then they become the guide.
Yeah, there's been, and in regards to the social engineering that we're talking about, everything that we will address in this discussion will always be a social engineering drive to weaken. So I don't
turn
call
into
it,
easy prey.
turn into easy prey. And they have purposely given the female, sort of through policy and funding and social media, is that the female is now portrayed as stronger than the male. So it's a safer position to take. Like I'm doing a big program, and I've had to force myself to watch some movies to aid in my program. So I think there's something called Code Red with The Rock that I was watching. I think it's called Code Red. And in the entire movie, I mean, you know how big Dwayne Johnson is, The Rock, and he's with Ryan Reynolds, he's still 6'3", or I believe, but they're getting beat up all the time by that Wonder Woman actress. She's only 5'5" or something. So what's happening, which this is another attack on the female, is so we are designed to seek safety, and the subconscious will look for the repetitive content to assess what's safe. Now, here's the weird thing, is that the female has been framed as the safest gender, or the most powerful gender, or the most revered gender in the media purposely over the last 30 years, that now we have males reacting to the repetitive content, dressing as women, wanting to grab the safe number one position, which is completely bizarre. I was sent only yesterday, this only happened very recently. There was a bodybuilding show and it was female. And of course, because of the inversion agenda and the confusion agenda, which adds to the mind control, there was a male bodybuilder in the show with a bikini on.
Oh my God.
Correct. So a lot of people are like, when's this going to stop? Well, it's going to stop a couple ways, but the primary way is to understand why men who've been castrated of their power, their subconscious mind, which is very powerful in regards to forcing them to behave a certain way. So you have the castrated male, and our subconscious looks for safety more when it's castrated or impotent. And the repetitive messaging is it's safer to be a woman, so they're all dressing as women. So.
But you know, it's funny because you know how I was saying that a lot of the women that are pursuing these things are frigid. I'm not saying that in a condescending way because it's, you know, it's a challenge, but it's like to over sexualize, to compensate for, you know, one way or another. So we're seeing that going in every direction.
Now, when you say frigid, do you mean the Victorian definition where they're not having sex, or are they just cold?
No, where they don't know their bodies, they don't understand their bodies, and they have been programmed to the way that they have sex is for male approval. So they will not do the work to get to know their bodies so that they can know their bodies and connect with their loved one and their partner and merge the heart in the equation. They are taught to become basically like a sex slave so that the male approves and doesn't leave her for another female. So she will be in the pursuit of arousing, pleasing, et cetera, and she will not, and I'm not saying everybody, of course, I'm just saying in some cases, she will not connect with the experience of sex. It's all about creating this theater, if that makes sense. And there's no connection with the sexual experience, with the heart, with the merging, with any of that. And I think pornography's done that a lot too.
Yeah, and you'll see that in our day and age, even, you know, we as truthers can get caught up. It's one thing we've been taught is to call it sex instead of making love, where we're seen as square or not up to the times. And if we call it making love. And I remember one lady refused if I ever mentioned the word sex. She refused and said it's making love or nothing's going to happen. And it's not a punishment. This is a uniting of the souls. This is not sex. Sex is something that's sort of the act that we're taught through the pornography and things along that line. I thought that was very important to point out, that even when I discuss it now on interviews or in group training, I will always say making love, because we have to back up how they've taught us how to analyze these things. And of course, you can't get a movie for free, but you can get all the pornography for free. And if we back up to Dr. Richard Day's talk in 1969, which again, you can listen all about it at drrichardday.com, it was all about making us overly sexualized, male and female. And there was many reasons for that, but they all revolved around destroying the marriage and destroying the union between man and, woman and man, because this just weakens the society. And again, this great weakening concept is the base of all this group's plan. Because no matter what they want, and even if they wanted to change gears and implement some other evil plan, a weakened society will comply all the time, and a strong society will not. So this great weakening is the basis of everything we're talking about, inserting plastic. If you insert breast implants or inject your lips with Restylane or whatever it's called, I'm sure they have something else right now, you will be weakened because it interferes with the production of energy in your own body.
Right. And I want to add something to that the exchange between a male and a female is sacred. And the female penetrates with her heart, the male penetrates with his genitalia and his mind. And there should be a cycle of the male penetrates us with their genitalia. We draw that energy in up to our heart. We bring it and we connect and we penetrate the male with our heart. And then he brings that energy to his mind. And then that energy brings it back down to us. They penetrate us with that energy and so on. And it's this cycle of electric energy, which is the male, and magnetic energy, which is the female. And it's a dance and it creates life. But if you are overly sexualized and you're behaving like a sex doll, and it's all about how am I looking while I'm having sex, like a porn star, then there's no opportunity for the intimacy. There's no opportunity for the connection. There's no opportunity for any of that to happen. And so it's one of the ways in which they are severing human connection, so that they can eventually, I guess, replace it with robots. It's interesting. I was seeing a video from Shakira and she's having sex with a robot. And I'm like, and you see they slowly move the agenda, and it happens in subtle ways, slowly but surely. And next thing you know, boom, the agenda's there, and you never even saw it coming. Well, most people won't see it coming, but.
Yeah, this is sort of one of the agendas. The main agenda is all their agendas don't stop. If anybody wants to know how this group works, I mean, in 1917 in Canada, there was no tax. Like, there was no income tax, there was no sales tax. And then they'll have a crisis, and it was the First World War, and they said, we just need this tax to pay for, for the money that we spent on the First World War. We'll repeal it after. This group is very old. They know how to rule. This is one of the primary modalities of ruling, is to have a crisis, to impose something, and they just keep this. It's called a Fabianistic approach, inch by inch, so that the average person doesn't know or doesn't get frightened enough to do anything about it. They just keep going down the road inch by inch, like that frog in the proverbial boiling pot of water. Turn up the heat slowly, and the average person isn't going to know. But this disconnection, even it was the Rockefeller Institute that launched through behavior modification and mind control the idea of getting the female out into the workforce and
for taxes, and to disconnect her from the family.
And what they really want here, I mean, they've done this agenda on the male for decades prior to attacking the female. You have to get the protective male force out of the way first. So the repetitive content that took over males' behavior, say the last 100 years, was drinking alcohol. This drinking alcohol is what real men do. And if you have a hard day, you're down at the bar and screw the wife, I'm just going to get drunk with the friends, and drinking's really cool. And you see it today, everybody flashing the alcohol selfies. They still think posing with poison reflects that they're living the good life. This is how deep the programming is that alcohol's been proven to cause cancer. It causes brain damage.
Damages the liver.
Any amount. It reduces lifespan in any amount. And this just goes to show the power. Yeah, they can make a woman pay $15,000 to insert toxic plastic under their breast. They can do anything. They have people still today, to this very day, honor alcohol as something they absolutely need. And if they can program you to believe that you absolutely need to poison yourself and wreck your body and wreck your brain and die early, it's not to frighten anybody or tell them not to drink it. It's about saying, be careful. You don't understand your behavior. And if they can make you poison yourself with alcohol, they can make you poison yourself with all these other different modalities that they're famous for as well. And it's all part of the Great Weakening. But this agenda to destroy the male with the alcohol disconnected the female, because the female sees the male as a protector. So he just kept showing up drunk as an alcoholic in many, many relationships. And the female just learned to not trust the male.
But now they're doing it to the female as well. Now, like
Absolutely.
the cool mom is the one with the wine, etc. They're doing it to females too.
Absolutely. And once you get a destabilized human, knowing they have to bond, they will bond. That's the 100% psychological truth, is humans will bond, and they don't like bonding with unstable things. So the end part of the, not the end part, but the next part of the agenda was to say, hey, females, I'll be your patriarch, your patriarchal figure as the government, and you can count on me. I'll be there for you with your daycare, with the monthly stipend, with the job that pays more, with the pension. You can count on me. I'm the only one you can count on, but that's after they destroyed the male stage right. And all this agenda is because this group doesn't care about the male, doesn't even care about the female. They want one prize, and it's the kids. It's always being the kids. So get those two adults out of the way, or make those adults act, talk, and think like children. You can have a greater run at the children unchallenged, which is what we're having today.
And that is such an important point, because if I was to summarize, the agenda is about the destruction of innocence. And this is why they are attacking children. And this is why they are keeping people in a perpetual state of infantilization, but it's not connected to their childlike innocence. It's in a childish state. You know, it's not the creativity, it's not the wonder, it's not, you know, the parts of the child that are magical. It's actually the irresponsible, you know, helpless, you know, like child/teenager, because, as you said, the agenda is to turn state into parent. Hello, communism, you know? And there's something I wanted to say. We backtrack a little bit and then come back to this. And it was with the breast implants and the plastic. And it's like, remember, if our heart is behind our breasts and we penetrate the world and we penetrate males with, you know, our heart energy, we now have a barrier that is an interference for that heart-to-heart connection. So that's one thing that I wanted to point out. It's the seduction of, oh, I'll attract more males, but then now you've got this in you, and are you creating a barrier for connection with that male that you want to bond with? So that was one thing that I want to say in relationship to that, because it's so important. And in relationship to everything that you were saying with the alcohol, I have a little story about that. So I haven't had a drop of alcohol since 2005. And I don't like alcohol, and I have no interest in alcohol. And one day I was watching some series. I don't watch TV these days, but I was watching these series back in, like, I don't know, 2015. And it was interesting because after having worked on TV, like when I've been single, I've never had a TV in my house. Does that make sense? It's always been my partner's, and now my partner doesn't watch TV either. But anyway, we were watching this series, and there's a great book. I don't know if you've read it. It's called 4 Arguments for the Elimination of Television, or the Destruction of Television.
Yeah,
are you familiar with it?
4 arguments.
Yeah, 4 arguments. Yeah. All right. So, so anyway, we're watching this series, and one of the things that I realized is I hadn't watched TV in like the longest time. So, you know how we were talking about the frog being cooked slowly, like that, you know, analogy that people use? It was like I stopped watching TV, and then I watched TV. I'm like, what is all this? It was just the whole agenda just in 10 years or something like that, it was like all the TVs were about, you know, the pride, the this, the that, you know, like everything. And I'm like, what happened? And because I hadn't been immersed in it and I saw it, it was like, wow. But then this is where I'm going with to what you were saying. So we're cooking and we're playing, my husband and I were cooking and we're playing jazz. And then I said, oh, it would be nice to have a glass of wine now. And then I went like, what? I don't like wine, never have liked wine. And here I am thinking that I'm watching the series, like, you know, analyzing and observing the agenda and this and that. And then next thing you know, I'm finding myself saying this when I don't even like it and I haven't consumed it since 2005. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, it's a powerful, it's a weapon.
It's
a weapon.
It's a weapon, and the average person does not. And the thing is today, before we say what the people don't know, is there's not an excessive amount of time to put all this together. We were talking about this slowly over the past, or I was over the past 20 years. It's really important to come up to date on really fast about how powerful the TV and the movie screen are for modifying behavior, given that they are documented military weapons, proven to go after the part of the mind I talked about, this loving part of the brain. Like, it's the greatest love story ever told. We have a part of the brain that wants us to be safe, that controls our behavior, that looks for repetitive content outside our conscious awareness. And it does that because it wants us to be safe, and it believes that the repetitive content reflects what the bigger herd is saying, thinking, or doing. And if you mimic that, you're probably going to be safer. And this is all automatic. And the people who rule us know that. And that's why they control everything that we see in the repetitive content realm. And then we end up acting out what they want us to act out. And I wanted to just say, I'm going to put in the show notes of this talk a document, like it was a made-for-TV show, like a special. It was Darren Brown, and the show was called The Push. And I'm only mentioning this so people can come up to speed really fast about how powerful repetitive content and group pressure is for changing your behavior into something that's completely bizarre. They had 4 people that they really screened well for. Compliant types, you know, the good guy or the nice lady, super compliant. 4 people. And one scenario that lasted about 3 hours, very complex scenario. But at the end of this scenario, everybody else was actors. Very large scenario. There's probably 150 other actors in the scenario. And the one victim, the one mark, the one person has no idea what's going on. The end scenario was this disaster that raised fear, because fear makes you more compliant. And the group said, look, all this fear can go away if you just go kill that guy over there and push him off the side of a building. Now, that was an actor too on the side of the building, but he was on a side of a real building, 10 floors up from the ground. And he was harnessed, but no one could see he was harnessed. So if he got pushed, he would just fall and then sweep gently under the precipice so you wouldn't see him. It's also in the dark. 3 out of the 4 people killed the guy right on camera.
I'm not surprised. And there's some other research that they did along those lines, like then told people to torture people and give them like electroshocks.
That was the Milgram experiment, and about 70% gave the fatal dose of electroshock treatment based on the say-so of an authority figure. And again, there was some similarities between the push and the Milgram experiment, because the group sort of acts as the authority figure. So the people that ended pushing this old man off the side of the building, he was harnessed, by the way. The 3 people were pressured by a group of 5 that sort of bonded with them over the 3 hours. And 3 hours, that's all Darren Brown. He's a UK mind control specialist. He set the whole thing up. Darren only worked on each person for 3 hours, controlled the repetitive content. So the average person is watching Netflix every day and watching their screens and their magazines. They're not even looking outside anymore in God's realm. They're looking at this fabricated and faux, basically a satanic realm that's completely, it's a substitute for reality. And they want people obsessed with what's on the screen because they dot the messages throughout the screen. It doesn't have to be like an actor talking about the Rolex watch. It doesn't even have to be an actor wearing the Rolex watch. You could just have a Rolex watch on
The background,
a dresser on the background. And then if you can repetitively, and no one's looking at the background, that's why I watched Code Red last night. And, you know, my job as a psychological pressure expert or group pressure expert is to literally almost stop at every scene and look at the background, because it's the background that the subconscious focuses on. And so all their agendas are usually in the background, not really in the foreground, not what's called the primary field of view, not on the actor himself or herself. Very dangerous. So this is where all the females are getting, like, it's not logical to spend $15,000 to put toxic plastic under your skin. If you would have spent $15,000 in Bitcoin in 2010, you'd have $73 million today.
Do you know what's really interesting? That when I was working on media, you know, and when I said TV fitness bombshell, whatever, like I was like, you know, the girl on camera showing exercises and nutrition tips and all this stuff. And do you know what they kept telling me? They were like, your career could advance so much better if you got a boob job. And I was like, no, thank you. Like, you have no idea how many times they said that to me. One day I was sitting, getting my makeup done, and the makeup artist goes, you know what? Your cheeks are too round. You should get liposuction in your cheeks. That's how he called it. It's called, I think it's buccal fat removal or something like that. And I was like, can they actually even do that? Like, I was like, what? So the pressure for the talent, because having been talent, like what it is they harness your sensual energy. They harness your charisma. They harness everything to make people feel safe, as Jason is saying, so that you trust, so that you mimic. They give you your idols, you know, so that you feel safe, you feel like you know these people, you trust them, you follow. And what I kept saying to them is, like, I am aware that I am a public figure, that I am on camera. By the way, this was on Latin television in the early 2000s. And I said, like, I'm aware that what I'm doing here influences people, and my message is about women respecting their body and getting healthy naturally. So if I get breast implants, I'm a contradiction to my message. So I'm not going to do that. And as a matter of fact, the reason why I quit TV was because I was working on a cooking show, and they wanted me to talk about pasteurized milk and how wonderful it was, and I refused. And so they said to me, well, if you want to make it in this field, you're going to need to learn how to compromise. And I said, well, my ability to sleep at night is not for sale. And I quit.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and I realized that, you know, like, I had a message that I wanted to deliver. It was the reason why I was on camera. It wasn't because I wanted the perks that came with it. I mean, I had a message and I wanted to deliver it. So I was willing to walk out from it. If, you know, and I was, a part of me was naive at that time. But then when I worked there for like 10 years. I don't know, if I started to see the behind the scenes, and I was able to produce my segments, and I had freedom, and it was wonderful. But there were those situations, and they tried to manipulate me and say things, but I was never forced, because I was never under a contract. In this scenario with this show, they wanted to give me a contract. So I don't know what would have happened if I would have been under a contract. But I realized this is not the medium to deliver my message, because of what it serves. And it's not health, and it's not empowerment, and it's not well-being. I had an argument one day with the producers as well, and she's like, well, you're getting too I don't know, educational. in your segments or something like that. And I said, well, my first career is mass communications. I said, well, my understanding is that as communicators, our job is to educate and empower people. And she's like, no, no, no. This is what she said to me. Our job is to keep them buying things and watching our novelas. And I was like, I mean, I can tell you a million stories, but it was like, I'm speaking to you as an insider, somebody who's been in that field, who has witnessed a lot of stuff, who they tried to manipulate for me to start changing my body. In 2007, when high definition came about, I think it was around 2007, all of them, everybody, all the talent, everybody who was on camera ran to get Botox.
Well, this is, this is one particular story, but it applies to the whole society now. And they are telling you, you can get more rewards if you destroy God's creation.
Correct.
And that's sort of because it applies to a much broader brushstroke here, where if you say have a teacher who compromises their own morality, and this is in psychology, there's inner strength and inner weakness. Now, say when I used to take steroids, it would make me weaker internally, even though I would look more powerful externally. And what they found is that if they can poison you, and I was poisoning myself because of repetitive imaging and messages in the environment, but if they can have you compromise your own soul and spirit and your own morality and ethics, they know you will look the same physically, but you'll be more compliant. And
Absolutely.
even though if it's for a paycheck, so I see my friends, some of them are teachers in Canada. They're teaching children lies. And they know they're teaching them lies, and they're hoping there's no repercussions. They're operating like God isn't looking. That's what they're operating like. But there are laws in this universe that they're breaking. They know they are breaking them, and it weakens them on the inside. And so when we're asked to compromise, when the nurse is asked to participate in an untested, unregulated, dangerous injection, and she participates in it herself, she might look the same, but she is being weakened so much on the inside. If the devil comes around the bend again in another train, they're more likely to comply. So all these invitations for money or greater paychecks are always based on you destroying the only part of yourself that really matters.
Yep.
And that's the big blanket that you could throw over the entire world right now, is come do the devil's work for the big paychecks. And this never works out. It's being tried maybe on the planet Mars, because that's what Earth is going to look like when everything's said and done. If people don't start protecting their inner territory like they protect their material goods.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I lost my job and my income and the potential to become the face of the network for fitness and all that stuff, but I earned my self-respect. And that has been like so incredible, so amazing. And it's one of the things that I love to teach people. It's the inner work. It's the things that people don't see. It's like, I don't make my choices so that anybody sees me. I make my choices because I see, because I'm present, because I'm embodied, not so that I can get the approval of another person. Like, one of the things that I do is I study power. And actually one of my books is called Power. And one of the things that I've realized is that there's two ways, as I understand it, that we tend to manage power. Either we give it away, we sacrifice our power, or we take it from others. It's like a blood donor vampire type dynamic. It's codependency, basically. And when we don't know who we are, And when we don't know how to have inner power structures and how to harness that power inside ourselves, what we do is we try to take it from others, or we give it to others. We sacrifice ourselves so that they owe us. It's a control drama. It's a power struggle. The masculine energy tends to do the more overpowering. It's more overt, like I'll try to establish power. The female is more covert, more behind the scenes, and more conniving, you know, in the manipulation of power. She'll sacrifice herself, but she'll give you a million invisible invoices. And she'll victimize herself, and there's nothing bigger than the control drama of a victim. And you know, and these are the power struggles. So what we've witnessed and what we've learned to do is to sacrifice and give our power away, or take it away from others. And it's either we parent other people or we want them to parent us. It's an infantilization, and it's a codependent type dynamic. And so the invitation is for us to look at the parts of our lives where we are giving our power away, where we need approval, where we need validation, the fear of humiliation, the fear of being abandoned, all of those things. And then we need to do the work to build the inner power structures, so that we know how to manage our power internally, so we don't get seduced by any of these things in the outside world. And I think that this is an archetypal, like life itself is an archetypal journey of empowerment. And every step of the way, we get given opportunities to disempower ourselves or empower ourselves, disempower ourselves or empower ourselves. Alcohol, drugs, pornography, cheating, whether it's on other people or on yourself, you know, through the cosmetic procedure, all of that, in my opinion, is cheating. Like if the steroids, you know, it's
total cheat.
Right. It's the shadow side of the athlete archetype. Like I will get, you know, the athlete archetype is all about what am I made of? Myself through my own efforts. The shadow side of the athlete is I will get to my goal regardless of what I need to do, even if it means hurting others or hurting myself. But it's all about the fact that we were learned to externalize power, and these people understand that, and they have built their society around that way. To the degree that we lose our power, we centralize it in external authority figures, and that's how we've, you know, somehow supported the creation of the institutions outside of us. So it's about us going back to self and building each one of those institutions within ourselves, the inner power structures, so that we have our inner guides, instinct, innate intelligence, intuition, integrity as our compass, and always by the main purpose of self-respect, because when you respect yourself, you respect others. So it's about the return to respect, is a return to morals, is a return to protecting, you know, like the children. It's about protecting the family unit, what it means to be a male, what it means to be a female, not these blurry lines. And I'll say something, you know how you were talking about how, you know, now it's the female and she's super strong. I used to buy into all that crap. I used to think that I was super strong because I lifted weights. And when I got together with my husband's pretty big. And I was like, I want to wrestle you. He's like, I don't wrestle women. And I was like, how dare you condescend? Well, I'm going to wrestle you. And then he just like with a finger, he just kind of like pinned me down. And that put me in my place real quick. And what do I mean by that? I believe that we're meant to respect each other. I don't believe that we're equal. We're very different as men and women. And he has certain strengths and I have certain strengths. And to own the illusion that I am as strong as a male physically, I mean, like all you need to do is just look at our bodies. And it's like no comparison. You know, but for me to own the illusion and on top of that, I want to be with a male that is stronger than me, because it allows me to feel protected. It allows me to surrender by my own choice. I want to surrender to a male. I have my own sense of leadership, but I'm with a male and my partner will lead in certain situations as well. And I will allow for that because I've chosen, because I feel safe in his presence. so I can step into my feminine energy. And instead of trying to be a pseudo male, a lot of my former partners were always like, let me be the man. And it was like, you know, life just has this beautiful way of kind of like showing you what is authentic. I don't crave a soft male. I crave a strong man with morals, with a compass, with inner authority, with physical strength, somebody who doesn't poison themselves, somebody who's got a big heart and who knows how to use their masculine, strong energy to protect.
Yeah, that's really important for females to hear. But you can see what's happened to the male. His repetitive imagery would be, say, Thor, the last movie or second last movie with Thor and the Avengers. Thor was drunk and developed a beer belly, and Supergirl saved the day. We have
my God, really? I haven't seen that. Oh my God.
Yes.
Oh my God.
You know, Thor could, you know, chop off the hand of Thanos, but he couldn't, you know, I think Thanos came back to life. Couldn't beat him that time. We needed Supergirl. But the dangerous thing is sort of what you talked about, is you have... It
puts women in danger too.
It puts females in danger because it gives the female this false sense of strength where, like you said, Mark, I know Mark, you know, pinned you to the ground very effectively, but it won't be the regular male going to be wrestling with you. It will be the government, communist stormtroopers coming to your single home as a, you know, you're a single female. Is, you know, the Bad Moms movie, a lot of repetitive imagery there, where everybody thinks I'm just gonna have fun, and you know, I don't need no man, and the government's like, I put that in your mouth. I mean, the word government comes from the word govern, which means the control, and ment or mentis is Latin for mind. Government actually means mind control.
Mind control.
So you get the female through the repetitive messaging, believing they're super independent, super strong, and they fall for it, which is, we're not even near the end of the agenda. What they're trying to do is getting the female into a single mother, single family, or single parent home. And then the male's drunk with his own problems over there, smoking dope or whacking off or playing video games. And now here comes the government wolf, which was always the plan, kicks open the door. The female, who's watched too many movies, tries to be Supergirl, and they just give her the butt of the gun right in the jaw and break all her teeth. And this is what's coming. And I suggest, and regardless, we got to get together as males and females and start working this out.
And that's the point right there. The agenda is to have us hate each other and fight against each other. It's about coming together with our unique strengths.
It is. And that's why, I mean, I have a new program. It's not even really put together. I mean, the first chapter is put together, which is bonding, connection, and even friendship rituals in Puerto Vallarta, 6 full-day schedule, Cirque du Soleil in the jungle, zip lining, sunset tours, dinners at the finest restaurants. So, because we need, we got to get out from behind the screens, because the screens have all this repetitive imagery that are making us weak. And I'm going to personally teach people how to build their power. It doesn't make you immune. Power doesn't make you immune to attack, but it gives you a massive force field where you can take a 40-ton grenade to the left flank, and you'll get rocked, but because of your power, you snap right back. You can't take it in perpetuity. You can't take the attacks, but the average person today, they have no force field. So when the government attacks, which is basically a word for mind control, and they tell you, you know what, you're going to go eat crickets and have
and own nothing and be happy.
You're going to own nothing and be happy. If the person doesn't have any power, they're just going to get blown right over like a wet paper mache doll. So there's lots of solutions out there. my new program is completely solution based and educate. One solution is knowledge. But how can people find you, Ximy? How can they find you and get the solutions you're offering so they can, start leveling up and building their power back inside themselves?
Yeah, so they can find me through an Instagram, Bombshell Formula. And by the way, Bombshell Formula is knowledge, the masculine energy of like intellect and exploring nature and the world, what it used to be, plus experience, the feminine energy of feeling and bringing that experience into your reality so that you learn to trust yourself. And the marriage between those two is wisdom. So it's about, or the baby that comes from those two is wisdom. So knowledge plus experience equals wisdom is a self-exploration journey for people to self-discover, build inner power structures. And it's mostly for the females. It's actually for the females. So Bombshell Formula in Instagram, they can find me there. And I'm so grateful that we're having this conversation, Jason, because people need to know that yes, they're doing all these things, but there are things that we can do to call ourselves back and to not give into this, because the next part that's coming, if I know you want to close, but I just want to really say this because it was a really important thing I wanted to say.
Oh, you take your time.
Oh, okay. The artificial intelligence agenda, which is all the destruction of nature, the destruction of creator, and it's about getting people to accept the artificial intelligence. And I think that, the whole thing with the breast implants, the lips, and all of these things is, and especially the Botox, is about making women expressionless. And they've actually done some research where they found that one of the ways in which obviously we communicate is through micro expressions, and that it's how we feel empathy for another person. And so if you're paralyzing your face, it's about teaching other people to not have empathy for you. And I'll tell you how I realized that this was so true. I was watching this thing, and there was this woman, and she was talking about this horrible experience that she had. And then I'm listening to it, but I'm devoid of emotion. And I'm like, what's happening? Well, this woman's face was completely frozen, paralyzed with all the Botox and the fillers and everything that she had. She could not, the only reason you could tell she was crying was because she actually had tears running down her face. And occasionally her lips would do something like a little thing like that. And I could not connect emotionally. I'm an empath. I could not empathize. I could not connect with this woman. And if you look at a lot of these robots that they're putting out, they have like these little little things that kind of try to move in the face, but they can't have micro expression. It's such complex movements. They can't have that. And I think that it's about normalizing this whole thing. And guess what? They gave us Barbie when we were little girls. It was a plastic doll. And we build our entire sense of self on wanting to look like Barbie, wanting to be Barbie. And here we are starting to look more and more like Barbie, even males wanting to look like Ken. Yeah. And they have that going on. And women injecting, I think it's polymers or something like that, into their tissues. This is a plastic, injecting into their tissues so that their butt looks firmer and their thighs look a certain way and all this. And you cannot, you can take the breast implants out, the capsule, etc. You cannot take this thing out. It's very complex, is my understanding. And I think but don't take my word for it. I'm not sure if it's polymers, but it's a plastic, basically, and it attaches to your tissues. So this is, it's where we're going. And just like they had first the computer over there, then the laptop, then the iPad and the phone, and now it's the watch, and then it's the Neuralink or the chip or whatever it is that they're going to put in. And little by little, like Jason was saying, getting you to accept what they want to bring about. So it's dehumanization, where you can't connect with another individual because there's no micro expressions, a whole bunch of plastic around your chest so that you can't penetrate through your heart. There's a barrier. And also the lips, you connect with the lips, you kiss people with the lips, like your partner. You know, and then telling us that we're going to go into the promised land if we do these things. But what does that do? It makes you sick. It makes you disempowered, and it makes you addicted, because once you've taken out this wrinkle, then you start seeing this wrinkle and this wrinkle and this wrinkle. And next thing you know, you are addicted and obsessed. And one of the agendas is to use vanity to destroy the female and sell it as self-care. That is not self-care. Self-care is when you eat good food, is when you get to bed on time, is when you have good quality, sleep, and all of these things that nature offers. Vanity is when you do things to look good at the expense of your health, your mental health, your physical health, etc. And they want women locked, poisoning themselves, like cutting, pasting, hating themselves.
Yeah, and basically, if they were to show up on your lawn and hold you down, one person on each wrist, one person on each ankle, inject plastic under your skin, pour alcohol down your throat, make sure you carry a cancer-causing cell phone in your pocket, like sew it into your jeans. The average person would be saying, this is really obvious, you're trying to hurt me. And this is
if they get you to do it. This group has two modalities of control: poison and indoctrination, which is mind control. So they don't have the power to make you comply by force. So they trick you psychologically to attack yourself. And this is the fifth generation of warfare, is that they don't need the guns anymore or the military. They're just going to have you. It takes a little longer for you to kill yourself. You wait in line at the medical clinic for your injection. You bring your kids with you. It does take a little longer than putting, the rifle to your temple. But you get there. You'll get there if you don't understand how your behavior operates. If anybody wants to understand more about human behavior, they can email me at jason@freedomfromselfsabotage.com. Is there an email that they can contact you, Ximy, or we just leave it at the website? At the Instagram, or they can go to my website, which is bombshellformula.com.
Okay, and contact you there. Okay, well, look, I really appreciate the talk. I'm sure we could have talked for a couple hours. I think this will give people a good segue into some areas they might want to explore, and hopefully they reach out in the future and participate in one of our programs.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks.
Thank you, Jay.
You're very welcome.